verse. It says, "But now those younger than I deride me, young men whose fathers are less than my dogs. Oh, how they have strong backs, all right, but they are useless, stupid fools. They are gaunt with famine and have been cast out into the deserts and the wastelands. Desolate and gloomy, they eat roots and leaves, having been driven from civilization. Men shouted after them as after thieves. So now they live in frightening ravines and in caves and among the rocks. They sound like animals among the bushes, huddling together for shelter beneath the nettles. Those sons of theirs have also turned out to be fools, yes, children of no name, outcasts of civilization. And now I have become the subject of their ribald song. I'm a joke among them. They despise me, won't come near me, and don't mind spitting in my face. For God has placed my life in jeopardy. These young men, having humbled me, now cast off all restraint before me. This rabble trips me and lays traps in my path. They block my road and do everything they can to hasten my calamity, knowing full well that I have no one to help me. They come at me from all directions. They rush upon me when I am down. I live in terror now. They hold me in contempt, and my prosperity has vanished as a cloud before a strong wind. My heart is broken. Depression haunts my days. My weary nights are filled with pain, as though something were relentlessly gnawing at my bones. All night I toss and turn, and my garments bind about me. God has thrown me into the mud. I have become as dust and ashes. I cry to you, O God, but you don't answer me. I stand before you, and you don't bother to look. You have become cruel toward me and persecute me with great power and effect. You throw me into the whirlwind and dissolve me in the storm, and I know that your purpose for me is death. I expected my fall to be broken, just as one who falls stretches out his hand or cries for help in his calamity. And did I not weep for those in trouble? Wasn't I deeply grieved for the needy? I therefore looked for good to come. Evil came instead. I waited for the light. Darkness came. My heart is troubled and restless. Waves of affliction have come upon me. I am black, but not from sunburn. I stand up and I cry to the assembly for help. But I might as well save my breath, for I'm considered a brother to jackals and a companion to ostriches. My skin is black and peeling. My bones burn with fever. The voice of joy and gladness has turned to mourning. Job chapter 31. I made a covenant with my eyes not to look with lust upon a girl. I know full well that Almighty God above sends calamity on those who do. He sees everything I do and every step I take. If I have lied and deceived, but God knows that I'm innocent, or if I've stepped off of God's pathway, or if my heart is lusted for what my eyes have seen, or if I'm guilty of any other sin, then let someone else reap the crops I have sown, and let all I have planted be rooted out. Or if I've longed for another man's wife, then may I die, and may my wife be in another man's home, and someone else become her husband. For lust is a shameful sin, a crime that should be punished. It is a death that destroys to hell and would root out all I've planted. If I've been unfair to my servants, how could I face God? What could I say when he questioned me about it? My servants have seen anyone freezing, or not given him clothing or fleece from my sheep to warm him, or if I've taken advantage of an orphan because I thought I could get away with it. If I've done any of these things, then let my arm be torn from its socket. Let my shoulder be wrenched out of place. Rather than that, face the judgment sent by God that I dread more than anything else. For if the majesty of God opposes me, what hope is there? If I put my trust in money, my happiness depends on wealth. Or if I've looked at the sun shining in the skies, or the moon walking down a silver pathway, and my heart has been secretly enticed, and I've worshiped them by kissing my hand to them, this too must be punished by the judges. For if I had done those things, it would mean that I denied the God of heaven. If I've rejoiced at the harm of an enemy, but actually I have never cursed anyone nor asked for revenge, or if any of my servants have ever gone hungry, actually I've never turned even away a stranger, but I've opened my doors to all. Or if, like Adam, I've tried to hide my sins, fearing the crowd and its contempt, so that I refuse to acknowledge my sin and do not go out of my way to help others. Oh, that there was someone who would listen to me and try to see my side of this argument. Look, I will sign my signature to my defense. Now let the Almighty show me that I'm wrong. Let him approve the indictments made against me by my enemies. I would treasure it like a crown. Then I would tell him exactly what I've done and why, presenting my defense as one he listens to. Or if my land accuses me because I stole the fruit it bears, or if I've murdered its owners to get their land for myself, then let thistles grow on that land instead of wheat, and weeds instead of barley. Job chapter 32. The three men refused to reply further to Job because he kept insisting on his innocence. Then Elihu, son of Barachel, the Buzite of the clan of Ram, became angry because Job refused to admit he had sinned and acknowledged that God had just cause for punishing him. But he also was angry with Job's three friends because they had been unable to answer Job's arguments and yet condemned him. Elihu had waited until now to speak because the others were older than he. But when he saw that they had no further reply, he spoke out angrily and said, I am young and you are old. So I held back and did not dare to tell you what I think. For those who are older are said to be wiser. But it's not mere age that makes men wise. Rather, it is the spirit in man, the breath of the Almighty that makes him intelligent. So listen to me a while and let me express my opinion. I've waited all this time listening very carefully to your arguments, but not one of them has convinced Job that he is a sinner as proved that he is. And don't give me that line about only God can convince the sinner of his sin. If Job had been arguing with me, I would not answer with that kind of logic. You sit there baffled with no further reply. Shall I then continue to wait when you are silent? No, I will give my answer too, for I'm pent up and full of words, and the spirit within me urges me on. I'm like a wine cask without a vent. My words are ready to burst out. I must speak to find relief, so let me give my answers. Don't insist that I be cautious, lest I insult someone, and don't make me flatter anyone. Let me be frank, lest God should strike me dead. Job 33. Please listen, Job, what I have to say. I've begun to speak, now let me continue. I will speak the truth with all sincerity, for the Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of Almighty gives me life. Don't hesitate to answer me if you can. Look, I'm the one you were wishing for, someone to stand between you and God and be both his representative and yours. You need not be frightened of me. I'm not some person of renown to make you nervous and afraid. I too am made of common clay. You have said it in my hearing. Yes, you've said it again and again. I'm pure and I'm innocent. I've not sinned. You say God is using a fine-tooth comb to try to find a single fault, and so to count you as his enemy, and he puts my feet in stocks, you say, and watches every move I make. All right, here's my reply. In this very thing you have sinned by speaking of God in that way. For God is greater than man. Why should you fight against him just because he does not give account to you of what he does? For God speaks again and again in dreams and visions of the night. When deep sleep falls on men as they lie in their beds, he opens their ears in times like that and gives them wisdom and instruction, causing them to change their minds and keeping them from pride and warning them of the penalties of sin and keeping them from falling into some trap. Or God sends sickness and pain, even though no one's bone is broken, so that the man loses all taste and appetite for food and doesn't care even for the daintiest dessert. He becomes thin, mere skin and bones, and draws near to death. But if a messenger from heaven is there to intercede for him as a friend to show him what is right, then God pities him and says, set him free. Do not make him die, for I have found a substitute. Then his body will become as healthy as a child's, firm and youthful again. And when he prays to God, God will hear an answer and receive him with joy and return him to his duties. And he will declare to his friends, I sinned, but God let me go. He did not let me die. I will go on living in the realm of light. Yes, God often does these things for man, brings back his soul from the pit so that he may live in the light of the living. Mark this well, O Job. Listen to me and let me say more. But if you have anything to say at this point, go ahead. I want to hear it, for I'm anxious to justify you. But if not, then listen to me. Keep silence, and I will teach you wisdom. Job chapter 34, Elihu continued. Listen to me, you wise men. We can choose the sounds we want to listen to. We can choose the taste we want in food, and we should choose to follow what's right. But first of all, we must define among ourselves what is good. For Job said, I'm innocent, but God says I'm not. I'm called a liar, even though I'm innocent. I'm horribly punished, even though I have not sinned. Who else is as arrogant as Job? He must have spent much time with evil men, for he said, why waste time trying to please God? Listen to me, you with understanding. Surely everyone knows that God doesn't sin. Rather, he punishes sinners. There is no truer statement than this. God is never wicked or unjust. He alone has authority over the earth and dispenses justice for the world. If God were to withdraw his spirit, all life would disappear and mankind would turn again to dust. Listen now and try to understand. Could God govern if he hated justice? Are you going to condemn the Almighty Judge? Are you going to condemn this God who says to kings and nobles, you are wicked and unjust? For he doesn't care how great a man may be and doesn't pay any more attention to the rich than to the poor. He made them all, great and small. For God carefully watches the going on of all mankind. He sees them all. No darkness is thick enough to hide evil men from his eyes. So there's no need to wait for some great crime before a man is called before God in judgment. Without making a big issue over it, God simply shatters the greatest of men and puts other in their places. He watches what they do in a single night. He overturns them, destroying them, or openly strikes them down as wicked men. for they turned aside from following him, causing the cry of the poor to come to the attention of God. Yes, he hears the cries of those being oppressed. Yet when he chooses not to speak, who can criticize? Again, he may prevent a vile man from ruling, thus saving a nation from ruin. And he can depose an entire nation just as easily. Why don't people exclaim to their God, we have sinned, but we will stop? We know not what evil we have done. Only tell us and we will cease at once. Must God tailor his justice to your demands? Must he change the order of the universe to suit your whims? The answer must be obvious even to you. Anyone even half bright will agree with me that you, Job, are speaking like a fool. You should 35 verse 1. Elihu continued, do you think it is right for you to claim I haven't sinned, but I'm no better off before God than if I had? I will answer you and all my friends and all your friends too. Look up there in the sky above you. If you sin, does that shake the heavens and knock God from his throne? Wow. Even if you sin again and again, what effect will that have upon him? Or if you are good, is this some great gift to him? Your sins may hurt another man, or your good deeds may profit him. The oppressed may shriek beneath their wrongs and groan beneath the power of the rich. Yet none of them cry to God, asking, where is God my maker, who gives songs in the night and makes us a little wiser than the animals and the birds? But when anyone does cry out to question to him, he never replies by instant punishment of the tyrants. But it is false to say he doesn't hear those cries. And it is even more false to say that he doesn't see what's going on. He does bring about justice at last, if you will only wait. But do you cry out against him because he does not instantly respond in anger? Job, you have spoken like a fool. Wow. Job chapter 36, Elihu continued. Let me go on and I will show you the truth of what I'm saying. I guess Elihu is saying, I listen to all you all. Y'all are going to listen to me. Let me go on and I will show you the truth of what I'm saying, for I have not finished defending God. I will give you many illustrations of the righteousness of my maker. I'm telling you the honest truth, for I'm a man of well-rounded knowledge. God is almighty and yet does not despise anyone, and he is perfect in his understanding. He does not reward the wicked with his blessings, but gives them their full share of punishment. He does not ignore good men, but honors them by placing them upon eternal kingly thrones. If trouble comes upon them and they're enslaved and afflicted, then he takes the trouble to point out to them the reason, what they've done wrong, or how they have behaved proudly. He helps them hear his instruction to turn away from their sin. If they listen and obey him, they will be blessed with prosperity throughout their lives. If they won't listen to him, they shall perish in battle and die because of their lack of good sense. But the godless reap his anger. They do not even return to him when he punishes them. They die young after lives of dissipation and depravity. He delivers by distress. This makes them listen to him. How he wanted to lure you away from danger into a wide and pleasant valley and to prosper you there. But you are too preoccupied with your imagined grievances against others. Watch out. Don't let your anger at others lead you into scoffing at God. Don't let your suffering embitter you at the only one who can deliver you. Do you really think that if you shout loudly enough against God, he will be ashamed and repent? Will this put an end to your chastisement? Do not desire the nighttime with its opportunities for crime. Turn back from evil, for it was to prevent you from getting into the life of evil that God sent this suffering. Look, God is all powerful. That's something else. Turn back from evil, for it was to prevent you from getting into a life of evil that God sent this suffering. Wow. Look, God is all powerful. Who is a teacher like him? Who can say what he does is absurd or evil? Instead, glorify him for his mighty works for which he is famous. Everyone has seen these things from a distance. God is so great that we cannot begin to know him. No one can begin to understand eternity. He draws up the water vapor and then distills it into rain, which the skies pour down. Can anyone really understand the spreading of the clouds and the thunders within? See how he spreads the lightning around him and blankets the top of the mountains. By his fantastic powers in nature, he punishes or blesses the people, giving them food in abundance. He fills his hands with lightning bolts. He hurls each at its target. We feel his presence in the thunder. Even the cattle know when a storm is coming. Job chapter 37. My heart trembles at this. Listen to the thunder of his voice. It rolls across the heavens, and his lightning flashes out in every direction. Afterwards comes the roaring of the thunder, the tremendous voice of his majesty. His voice is glorious in the thunder. We cannot comprehend the greatness of his power, for he directs the snow, the showers, the storm to fall upon the earth. Man's work stops at such a time, so that all men everywhere may recognize his power. The wild animals hide in the rocks or in their dens. From the south comes the rain, from the north the cold. God blows upon the rivers, and even the widest torrents freeze. He loads the clouds with moisture. They send forth his lightning. The lightning bolts are directed by his hand and do whatever he commands throughout the earth. He sends the storms as punishment or in his loving kindness to encourage. Listen, O Job, stop and consider the wonderful miracles of God. Do you know how God controls all nature and causes the lightning to flash forth from the clouds? Do you understand the balancing of the clouds with wonderful perfection and skill? Do you know why you become warm when the south wind is blowing and everything is still? Can you spread out the gigantic mirror of the skies as he does? You who think you know so much, teach the rest of us how we should approach God. For we're too dull to know. With your wisdom, would we then dare to approach him? Well, does a man wish to be swallowed alive? For as we cannot look at the sun for its brightness when the winds have cleared away the clouds, neither can we gaze at the terrible majesty of God breaking forth upon us from heaven, clothed in dazzling splendor. We cannot imagine the power of the Almighty, and yet he is so just and merciful that he does not destroy us. No wonder men everywhere fear him, for he's not impressed by the world's wisest men. Job chapter 38. Then the Lord answered Job from the whirlwind. Here we go. Why are you using your ignorance to deny my providence? Now get ready to fight, for I'm going to demand some answers from you, and you must reply. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Tell me if you know so much. Do you know how its dimensions were determined, or who did the surveying? What supports its foundations, and who laid its cornerstone? As the morning stars sang together, and all the angels shouted for joy? Who decreed the boundaries of the seas when they gushed from the depths? Who clothed them with clouds and thick darkness, and barred them by limiting their shores, and said, thus far and no further shall you come, and here shall your proud waves stop? Have you ever once commanded the morning to appear and caused the dawn to rise in the east? Have you ever told the daylight to spread to the ends of the earth, to end this night's wickedness? Have you ever robed the dawn in red and disturbed the haunts of wicked men, and stopped the arm raised to strike? Have you explored the springs from which the seas come, or walked in the sources of their depths? Has the location of the gates of death been revealed to you? Do you realize the extent of the earth? Tell me about it if you know. Where does the light come from, and how do you get there? Or tell me about the darkness. Where does it come from? Can you find its boundaries or go to its source? But of course, you know all this, for you were born before it was all created, and you are so very experienced. Have you visited the treasuries of the snow, or seen where the hail is made and stored? For I have reserved it for the time when I will need it in war. Where's the path to the distribution point of light? Where's the home of the east wind? Who dug the valleys for the torrents of rain? Who laid out the path for the lightning, causes the rain to fall upon the barren deserts, so that the parched and barren ground is satisfied with water, and tender grass springs up? Has the rain a father? Where does the dew come from? Who is the mother of ice and frost? For the water changes and turns to ice, and is hard as a rock. Can you hold back the stars? Can you restrain Orion and Pleiades? Can you ensure the proper sequence of the seasons, or guide the constellation of the Bear with her satellites across the heavens? Do you know the laws of the universe and how the heavens influence the earth? Can you shout to the clouds and make it rain? Can you make lightning appear and cause it to strike you as you direct it? Who gives intuition and instinct? Who is wise enough to number all the clouds? Who can tilt the water jars of heaven when everything is dust and clods? Can you stalk prey like a lioness to satisfy the young lion's appetites as they lie in their dens or lie in wait in the jungle? Who provides for the ravens when their young cry out to God as they struggle up from their nests in hunger? My God. God is going off. Woo! Woo! Job chapter, let me take some Pepsi on this. Job 39. My Lord. Job 39:1. Do you know how the mountain goats give birth? Have you ever seen them giving birth to their young? Do you know how many months of pregnancy they have before they bow themselves to give birth to their young and carry their burden no longer? The young grow up in the open field, then leave their parents and return to their home no more. Who makes the wild donkeys wild? I placed them in the wilderness and given them salt plains to live in, for they hate the noise of the city and want no drivers shouting at them. The mountain ranges are their pasture land. There they search for every blade of grass. Will the wild ox be your happy servant? Will he stay beside your feeding crib? Can you use a wild ox to plow with? Will he pull the harrow for you because he is so strong? Will you trust him? Will you let him decide where to work? Can you send him out to bring in the grain from the threshing floor? The ostrich flaps her wings grandly, but has no true motherly love. She lays her eggs on top of the earth to warm them in the dust. She forgets that someone may step on them and crush them, or the wild animals destroy them. She ignores her young as though they weren't her own, and is unconcerned though they die. For God has deprived her of wisdom. But whenever she jumps up to run, she passes the swiftest horse with its rider. Wow. Have you given the horse strength, or clothed his neck with a quivering mane? Have you made him able to leap forward like a locust? His majestic snorting is something to hear. He paws the earth and rejoices in his strength. And when he goes to war, he's unafraid and does not run away from the arrows though the arrows rattle against him, or the flashing spear and javelin. Fiercely he paws the ground and rushes forward into battle when the trumpet blows. At the sound of the bugle he shouts, aha! He smells the battle when far away. He rejoices at the shouts of battle and the roar of the captain's command. Do you know how a hawk soars and spreads her wings to the south? Is it at your command that the eagle rises high upon the cliffs to make her nest? She lives upon the cliffs, making her home in her mountain fortress. From there she spies her prey from a very great distance. Her nestlings gulp down blood, for she goes wherever the slain are. Job chapter 40. The Lord went on. Do you still want to argue with the Almighty, or will you yield? Do you, God's critic, have the answers? Then Job replied to God, I am nothing. How could I ever find the answers? I lay my hand upon my mouth in silence. I've said too much already. Then the Lord spake to Job again from the whirlwind. Stand up like a man and brace yourself for battle. Let me ask you a question and give me the answer. Are you going to discredit my justice and condemn me so that you can say you are right? Are you as strong as God, and can you shout as loudly as he? All right then, put on your robes of state, your majesty and splendor. Give vent to your anger. Let it overflow against the proud. Humiliate the haughty with a glance. Tread down the wicked where they stand. Knock them into the dust, stone-faced in death. If you can do that, then I'll agree with you that your own strength can save you. Take a look at the hippopotamus. I made him too, just as I made you. He eats grass like an ox. See his powerful loins and the muscles of his belly. His tail is as straight as a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are tightly knit together. His vertebrae lie straight as a tube of brass. His ribs are like iron bars. How ferocious he is among all of God's creation. So let whoever hopes to master him bring a sharp sword. The mountains offer their best food to him, the other wild animals on which he preys. He lies down under the lotus plants, hidden by the reeds, covered by their shade among the willows there beside the stream. He is not disturbed by raging rivers, not even when the swelling Jordan rushes down upon him. No one can catch him off guard or put a ring in his nose and lead him away. Job chapter 41. Can you catch a crocodile with a hook and a line, or put a noose around his tongue? Can you tie him with a rope through the nose, or pierce his jaw with a spike? Will he beg you to desist or try to flatter you from your intentions? Will he agree to let you make him your slave for life? Can you make a pet out of him like a bird, or give him to your little girls to play with? Do fishing partners sell him to the fishmongers? Will his hide be hurt by darts, or his head with a harpoon? If you lay your hands upon him, you will long remember the battle that ensues, and you will never try it again. No, it's useless to try to capture him. It is frightening to even think about it. No one dares to stir him up, let alone try to conquer him. And if no one can stand before him, who can stand before me? I owe no one anything. Everything under the heaven is mine. I should mention, too, the tremendous strength in his limbs and throughout his enormous frame. Who can penetrate his hide? Who dares come within reach of his jaws? For his teeth are terrible. His overlapping scales are his pride, making a tight seal so no air can get between them and nothing can penetrate. When he sneezes, the sunlight sparkles like lightning across the vapor droplets. His eyes glow like sparks. Fire leaps from his mouth. Smoke flows from his nostrils like steam from a boiling pot that is fired by dry rushes. Come on, Jesus. Yet his breath would kindle coals. Flames leap from his mouth. The tremendous strength in his neck strikes terror wherever he goes. His flesh is hard and firm, not soft and fat. His heart is hard as a rock, just like a millstone. When he stands up, the strongest are afraid. Terror grips them. No sword can stop him, nor spear, nor dart, nor pointed shaft. Iron is nothing but straw to him, and brass is rotten wood. Arrows cannot make him flee. Sling stones are ineffective as straw. Clubs do no good. And he laughs at the javelins hurled at him. His belly is covered with scales as sharp as shards. They tear up the ground as he drags through the mud. Come on, Jesus. He makes the water boil with his commotion. He churns the depths. He leaves a shining wake of froth behind him. One would think the sea was made of frost. There is nothing else so fearless anywhere on the earth. Of all the beasts, he is the proudest monarch of all that he sees. Wow, wow, wow. Job 42. Then Job replied to God, all right, I know that you can do anything and that no one can stop you. You ask who it is who has so foolishly denied your providence. It is I. I was talking about things I knew nothing about and did not understand, things far too wonderful for me. You said, listen and I will speak. Let me put the questions to you, see if you can answer them. But now I say, I had heard about you before, but now I've seen you, and I loathe myself and repent in dust and ashes. After the Lord had finished speaking with Job, he said to Eliphaz the Temanite, I'm angry with you and your two friends, for you've not been right in what you said about me, as my servant Job was. Now take 7 young bulls and 7 rams and go to my servant Job and offer a burnt offering for yourselves, and my servant Job will pray for you. And I will accept his prayer on your behalf and won't destroy you as I should because of your sin, your failure to speak rightly concerning my servant Job. So Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite did as the Lord commanded them. And the Lord accepted Job's prayer on their behalf. Then when Job prayed for his friends, the Lord restored his wealth and happiness. In fact, the Lord gave him twice as much as before. Then all of his brothers and sisters and former friends arrived and feasted with him in his home, consoling him for all his sorrow and comforting him because of all the trials the Lord had brought upon him. And each of them brought him a gift of money and a gold ring. So the Lord blessed Job at the end of his life more than at the beginning. For now he had 14,000 sheep, 6,000 camels, 1,000 team of oxen, and 1,000 female donkeys. God also gave him 7 more sons and 3 more daughters. These were the names of his daughters: Jemimah, Keziah, Karen. And in all the land there were no other girls as lovely as the daughters of Job, and their father put them into his will along with their brothers. Job lived 140 years after that, living to see his grandchildren and great-grandchildren too. Then at last he died, an old man, after living a long, good life. Wow. This is the word of the Lord. My God.